Ooh, good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Yes, I opened up with Lisa Smith and Calvin Coburn. These are amazing candidates that I got to go see when I was at the Hassett House, actually, when I saw Mary Miller. She spoke, she was the keynote speaker, and I emceed the event, actually, with a bunch of amazing conservative women who went through this like year-long program to learn how to become a candidate either themselves or to learn how to be helpful to good candidates like Calvin Coburn and Lisa Smith. These are really dynamic candidates. It was really cool. I got to talking with Calvin, and he has an amazing story. We're going to bring him back in studio sometime. But I wanted to open up the show with those two interviews this morning. We're going to get right back into the news. First, a Mexican cartel. They're pinky promising to bar fentanyl production. Sincerely yours, the Chapitos. Yeah, they wrote a letter and they said, hey, we're going to stop fentanyl production, U.S. government. Don't worry. Just don't even look over here. Don't even bother. We're not producing fentanyl. The Chapitos, this is one of the biggest Mexican cartels in the world. And they're sitting there and they're like, oh, we pinky promise not to make fentanyl. Okay. Next, I do want to talk about Britney Spears. She claimed she got an abortion while dating Justin Timberlake because he didn't want to be a father. So she got an abortion because he didn't want to be a father. Interesting. All of this and more ahead on the Morning Buzz. As always, I'm live, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. So do appreciate you tuning in. Go ahead, smash that like button if you're watching on YouTube. That's Cat Peterson 99. You can find me there. First, I do want to talk about the Mexican cartel promising to not make fentanyl because, yeah, I believe a Mexican drug cartel when they say, yeah, we're not going to make fentanyl. Don't worry, U.S. government. A Mexican drug cartel that was, the Tooth Fairy is real. Santa Claus really does deliver presents on Christmas, and the Mexican cartel has promised that they're going to put an end to one of its biggest money makers is making fentanyl. But they promise for sure to end the production of fentanyl. Yeah, I also believe in the Tooth Fairy. The Tooth Fairy, totally real, folks. So the Mexican drug cartel here was once ruled by a now jailed Mexican drug lord called El Chapo. When you think of Mexican drug cartels, this is the drug cartel that is depicted in films. This is El Chapo's Mexican drug cartel. Now, this drug cartel has barred the production of fentanyl under the penalty of death. So if any of their drug guys, any of their little minions, if they start cooking fentanyl, then they're gonna get nixed by the drug lord. So this was the drug cartel that was run by El Chapo. So the Wall Street Journal has this story. They say that cartel operatives, that they interviewed some cartel operatives. The Wall Street Journal did. They said that the now I'm gonna mess this up. Sinula. I can't say it. It's a Mexican drug cartel. This is the drug cartel that was run by El Chapo. That they're prohibiting both the production and the trafficking of fentanyl after increased pressure from law enforcement in the United States. I doubt that that's the reason why. If they were, I don't even believe that they are going to stop production, but I doubt that that's the reason why they're stopping production because, Sleepy Joe, the cartel is taking orders from Sleepy Joe. No, I find that very hard to believe. But the Wall Street Journal, of course, doing the bidding of the law enforcement in the United States, they say that the cartel operatives of this known cartel said that they're stopping the production and the trafficking of drugs because they're scared of the U.S. law enforcement. Okay, so Sinaloa, in Sinaloa, this is the name of the cartel, Sinaloa. The sale and manufacture. This is what the cartel operatives write. They say in this drug cartel, the sale, the manufacture, the transport, or any kind of business involving the substance known as fentanyl, including the sale of the chemicals for its elaboration, so the chemicals used to make fentanyl, is permanently banned. This is what was written on a banner hung in Culiacan. Culiacan. This is Mexico City, and they actually made banners like billboards, and the cartels put them up. Yes, because the cartel uses billboards, and this is an effective marketing technique. I don't know, but they're marketing it. The cartel is marketing that they are banning fentanyl, the production of it, and the distribution of it. And at the bottom of this banner, so it says that, hey, with this drug cartel, the manufacture, the sale, any kind of business involving fentanyl is banned. It says at the bottom of the banner, you have been warned. Sincerely yours, the Chapitos. They call themselves the Chapitos. They're part of this uh, Mexican drug cartel. However, some law enforcement officials are skeptical this would do anything to curb the opioid drug trade. Yeah, I'd say so. And many subsequently uh, lead to they think that it's going to lead to an increase actually in heroin and cocaine trafficking. The U.S. official told the Wall Street Journal, hey, I don't think this really means anything. They think if they do this, they won't get as much heat from the U.S. law enforcement, right? If they come out and they say, hey, we're not going to be producing fentanyl. Hey, law enforcement, look at us. We're the good guys. We're not producing fentanyl. Several cartel operatives told the Journal that they have ceased production of the drug because the cartel had started killing anyone involved with fentanyl, which includes producing and trafficking the drug. So the operatives are saying that they're killing off people, and this is the way they're enforcing the ban on making fentanyl, is by chopping off people's heads, because that's the way of the cartels. If you make fentanyl, then we're going to just kill you. So they told the Journal that. It's just incredible. According to the newspaper, some members of the cartel that they spoke with said they ceased involvement because they could no longer get the chemicals needed to make the fentanyl, like there's a shortage of some kind, or they found another person who had been killed and had little blue pills thrown thrown up all over them. So they're talking here about the cartel operatives. They're trying to say that part of the reason why we want to stop fentanyl production is because all of our customers are dying. So that's why they want to stop the production, is because their customers are dying. They want heroin, they want cocaine because the fentanyl is killing all of their customers. Yeah, I mean, I guess, but like, I don't know. A drug that's not very hard to kill someone is typically, or a drug that's not very hard to kill someone. Well, fentanyl, cocaine, it kills people just as much, probably just not as fast as fentanyl does. Like I said, George Floyd, he died. He had look at your pencil tip. If you had a pencil, if you look at the tip of that pencil, that's about as much fentanyl he had in his system. And that's 3 times the amount of what could kill somebody. So it doesn't take a whole lot of fentanyl. It's one of their biggest money makers, though, because of that reason. It's you can distribute a lot of it after you make a bunch of it, and you can distribute a lot of it. But they're saying that it's not good for their customer. Yeah, I would think that this would lead in a reduction of sales, being that you're not having the returning customer if that customer is dead. All that said, fentanyl remains one of the cartel's biggest money makers, and maybe, just maybe, 75,000 fentanyl related deaths are still not enough to hinder their profits. Okay, they're just going to find more customers at the end of the day. This whole we're not going to make fentanyl thing, I think that this is all just kind of propaganda. That's actually what the former head of the international operations for the Drug Enforcement Administration said, the DEA, Mike Vigil. He said it's almost like a big campaign to convince the US they're not involved in the production of fentanyl anymore. It's nothing more than pure propaganda. Yeah, it's trying to get the US to get off their back. Um, or maybe the US is working with the Mexican drug cartel. That's always been a theory of mine, a conspiracy theory. A conspiracy theory. I think that possibly the US is working with the drug cartels and they're trying to say, hey, if you stop making fentanyl, making us look so bad because we've got 75,000 fentanyl related deaths here in the United States just this year. Um, Wait, that's making Joe Biden look really bad. If you could, just please continue selling heroin and cocaine, we'll look the other way if you stop producing fentanyl. And who knows, maybe they're putting the banners up to kind of prove that they're stopping or that they're making an effort, so that way the US doesn't jail them or, I know it's like a movie, but it seems more plausible to me that they're just trying to get the U.S. off their backs, the U.S. law enforcement off their backs, the DEA, because the cartel is they're going to pinky promise that I'm going to stop making fentanyl. I'm going to stop producing fentanyl. Yeah, right. I doubt it. It's one of your biggest money makers, but I don't know. We'll see. I have no idea why they're putting up billboards, like actual banners signed by the Mexican drug cartel that, hey, the punishment for making fentanyl in this part of Mexico is death. So don't make fentanyl anymore. So I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. I don't think that this is going to actually curb people dying from fentanyl. Do want to get into Britney Spears this morning. She wrote in a memoir. This came out. Her memoir. It's called "The Woman in Me," and she talks about while she was dating Justin Timberlake that she actually got an abortion, and she claimed that Justin Timberlake didn't want to be a father, and that had it been left up to her, that she would have never killed her own child. So here's a little bit of what she wrote. She goes, "It was a surprise for me, but it wasn't a tragedy." She's talking about the pregnancy. "I love Justin so much, and I always expected us to have a family together one day. This would just be much earlier than I anticipated, but Justin definitely wasn't happy about the pregnancy. He said we weren't ready to have a baby in our lives and that we were way too young." She said that the situation haunts her still to this day. And then she goes on, she says, "If it had been left up to me alone, I would have never done it." And Justin was so sure he didn't want to be a father. To this day, this is one of the most agonizing things I've ever experienced in my life. A household with both parents is typically the ideal situation, no matter how rich you are. But if you find yourself pregnant while having millions to your name, so at this time, Justin Timberlake, Britney Spears, this was in the 90s, they're so famous, right? They have millions to their names. You are more than capable of raising a child, quote unquote, alone. Okay, quote unquote, alone. She's pretending as if celebrities don't have full-time nannies to raise their children. Timberlake has implied his support for abortion. So at an Obama rally, I remember in 2008, his wife at the time, her name's Jessica Biel, I think it is. I don't know. She announced her stance and said, quote, "Nobody should be able to say what you can do with your body." That's what his wife at the time at the 2008 rally, Jessica, that's what she said. And then Justin Timberlake made a joke in response, even though it's not really funny to joke about murdering children. He said, "I give Jess the right to choose where we go to eat all the time." Yeah, because you're a simp, Justin. Uh, but he goes, "I give Jess the right to choose where we go to eat all the time." The funny thing is, what a woman chooses is usually right. Oh, right, because choosing where to eat is totally the same thing as murdering a baby, Justin. So he joked about that at a 2008 Obama rally. Um, Nothing but clowns in the entertainment industry, and this is just further proof of that. After the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, he retweeted his wife's statement Justin Timberlake did, and said, this statement said, "I'm enraged. What happened today is not only a disgusting step backward for women, undermining our ability to make decisions for our own bodies, but it's also dangerous." So that's what Jessica tweeted out. Except for the fact that it's not your body. But again, that's besides the point right now. Spears, she's got 2 sons right now. Abortion is one of the most evil things that is condoned by our society. I'm sorry. It's actually probably the most evil thing, followed by this gender bender nonsense. It has no place in the civilized world, and it's totally reprehensible at best. At best, it's reprehensible. It's so sad. Spears made this terrible decision, and it should totally be condemned. And it's extremely sad that an innocent child was killed. But she puts all the blame on Justin Timberlake for not being a dad. It's your fault, honey. You have to deal with your consequences. Okay, you slept with a guy who did not like you. Okay, and you and who wasn't ready to be a father. Okay, that's on you. It's not the baby's fault. She puts all the blame on Justin Timberlake, who didn't want to be a father. And if it was left up to her, she wouldn't have done it. Do not for a second buy that crap. She is a ridiculously insane amount of money. If she wanted to keep that child alive, she would have. She didn't need to raise the child. She could have raised that child, but she didn't. She has no one to blame but herself. Also, Spears, she blames literally everyone in her life for every single problem she has. She's a total narcissist. Nothing is ever her fault. She's what I've got. She's got what I call pretty girl syndrome, where, if you're a pretty girl and you get all this attention, then you are just, nothing is ever your fault. Nothing can ever be your fault. It's everyone else's fault except your own. So literally, you can't believe a word that she says at this point. But if Timberlake did do what she said he did, he should totally be condemned for condoning such an evil act as well. That's not what I'm saying here. But Britney Spears is not blameless. Okay. That doesn't change the fact that she had enough money to raise that child without him, and to claim that she couldn't raise the child without him is total nonsense. Don't fall for the grab. Don't feel sorry for her. By just the amount of wealth she had at the time, you should not believe her. She had more than enough resources. Most people couldn't even imagine. She was a millionaire, and she chose the easy way out by killing an innocent life. The only person who is the victim in this situation is the child that was killed by his own mother, her own mother. All right, I do want to take a quick break, but when we come back, a new poll of Illinois voters is out. Governor J.B. Pritzker, he's down by like 13% of approval rating. So he's at 40.5% approval rating. Big yikes. We'll be back talking a little bit about that. Also, AOC's out there. There's only a few guarantees in life: death, taxes, and AOC making a complete fool of herself. I'll be back on the other side. See, I wrote out the pronunciation of this cartel: Sinolia, Loia, Sinolia. Yeah, Sinolia. Yeah, it's this major cartel. It's the cartel that El Chapo run. I'm not a Spanish person. I am not a foreign language person. I know English and that's about it. I took French a little bit in college, but Sinolia. I tried to sound smart. I'm not. It's a huge cartel in Mexico. We are going to be back here on the other side. If you're watching, go ahead and smash that like button. You will not believe it. This ABC journalismer is actually interviewing with an IDF member, and he shuts this ABC journalismer down because the ABC journalismer is pretty much trying to shame him for the Palestinian deaths. And this Israeli Defense Forces soldier is not having it. He says, "You know what? You need to turn that question right back around, and you need to ask that of the Palestinians." As I've told you guys multiple times, and I'm gonna continue saying it. Israel is only 8 million people. That's it, 8 million people on this itty bitty bitty, plot of land, okay? Surrounding Israel is about 300 million Arabs and Muslims, most of whom want them dead, want the Israelis dead. Okay, that's just the facts. I hate to say that, but it's true. It's written within the Quran. Like the Quran is very violent. Everybody's like, yeah, well, cat, the Bible's violent too. Yes, but the Quran um, tells you to be violent. Okay, I've read some of the Quran. It's insane. I've never read anything in the Bible quite like that. And of course, the Gospels are not. Um, Old Testament, it gets a little wild. But then once you get into the New Testament, you're like, oh, this is, Jesus comes and kind of makes everything awesome. But the Quran is wild. So the Muslims, the Arabs, a lot of them in that part of the region want to see the 8 million people wiped out because it's a Jewish state. They believe that the Jewish state should not exist. I'm a Christian Zionist. I'm not a Jew, but I believe that Israel should exist and defend itself and that God chose Israel. It's very clear in Ezekiel. He prophesied, God said, "Hey, I'm going to gather my people up and I'm going to put them into one nation and we're going to give you a country." And that came to pass. Okay. So, um, to this day, there is a Jewish state, and I am a Zionist, and I believe that Israel has the right to defend itself. I don't believe in escalating. The right thing to do is to not escalate here. This is hyper escalation. What we're doing right now, we're sending 1,200, yeah, like 12,000 and 12,500 troops over there right now. About That's hyper escalation. And, you know, yesterday I was talking a little bit about how I wouldn't be shocked if the United States is funding both sides and we're fueling both sides of the war, which is just silly because if you're funding both sides of the war, then no one is actually going to win. Wars, it's a matter of how much you can spend, how much money you've got. Okay. If you've got a lot of money on your side, you can buy the weaponry, the tanks, the ammunition, things like that. And that wars are won with money. So we are fueling both sides of the war, which means it's going to be an endless war. And don't take my word for it. Tony Blinken actually came out and said that we were fueling both sides of the war. He said that we're providing humanitarian aid to the Palestinians and that we are also funding the Israelis. So when I heard that, I was like, wow, I called that yesterday. I said that I wouldn't be shocked if the United States starts funding both sides of the war. And here he is, Tony Blinken, saying the quiet part out loud. Hey, we're going to fund both sides of the war. If you're watching right now, go ahead and smash the like button. I lied. I said it was Tony Blinken. It's actually John Kirby. I can't keep up with all of the people who are running Joe Biden's campaign. We're going to be back. Yesterday I called it. I said that the United States were probably going to fund both sides of the war, the Palestinians, and then we're also going to be giving money to the Israelis. And, at the end of the day, wars are won with how much you have in your war chest, right? How much money do you have? If you have the most money, most likely you're going to be able to win the war. Uh, Turns out the United States, we're funding both sides of the war right now, the Palestinians and the Israelis. How does that make sense? Don't we want somebody to come out victorious? No. Instead, we're going to fund both sides. because that's just the way we're gonna do things. We want endless war. We want the military-industrial complex to flourish. And Janet Yellen said that the American economy is just doing just fine and dandy. And stop it with that. We have the money to fuel a two-front world conflict on both sides. We're hyper-escalating, folks. I'm a Zionist. I believe that Israel has the right to defend itself. The key word there, itself. Okay, so I don't want hyper-escalation. We are not helping the Israelis by fueling both sides of this war monetarily. Let's take a listen to John Kirby here. I told you yesterday, that was my prediction. I said, we're probably going to be spending money in Iran. We're going to be spending money on Israel. We're going to be fueling both sides. Take a listen.
National Security Council Coordinator for Strategic Communications, and I just want to spend a minute talking about this very important trip that President Biden will be making to the Middle East starting today. He will have two stops, Tel Aviv and Amman, Jordan. In both these stops, he will talk about how important it is for the United States and other partners to stand up for Israel and allow them to continue to defend themselves against Hamas terrorists. The United States support will stay strong and steady. We'll also send a strong signal of deterrence for any other actor in the region that might try to widen or deepen this conflict. Of course, the president will also spend time talking with leaders in Israel and in Jordan about the plight of those hostages that Hamas is holding, including some Americans. We want to make sure we get them home to their families, and we're working in concert with all our partners to do that. And of course, he will spend a lot of time talking about the humanitarian situation in Gaza for the Palestinian people. We want to make sure that humanitarian assistance, food, water, medicine can continue to flow to them as they need it, and that there is safe passage for those that need to get out. This is a critical time, a critical trip, and a very important opportunity.
So there's John Kirby coming out and speaking for Joe Biden on his behalf, because we know that Joe Biden can't do it. And he said that we're going to be sending all kinds of food, medical supplies, assistance to not the Israelis. Well, we're sending it to the Israelis, but we're also sending it to the Palestinians. So tell me how somebody comes out victorious if you're fueling both sides of the war and one side is not outspending the other, or one side has the same amount of money as the other side. Tell me how that works. It's incredible. All right, I'll be back on the other side. Speaking about Israel, an Israel soldier shut down an ABC journalismer for their line of questioning. That's next. Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Go ahead, smash that like button. We're going to be back with the Patriot Power Plug, talking a little bit about the Hamas terrorist attacks against Israel. And then we'll also chat a little bit about the speaker's race. I'm excited to have Mike Coolidge on. We'll be back in just about 30 seconds.
A 71 tonight, 50% chance of evening showers, still windy, low tonight 51.
You're never more than 20 minutes away from the latest Central Illinois weather forecast, guaranteed. Rain, shine, or snow, it's your dependable weather on Cities 92.9.
From the Johns and Lexington studio, when a body shop tells you it'll be months to get your car's body damage repaired, call Johns and Lexington. Chances are Johns and Lexington can repair your car in weeks, not months. Good morning.
So I've been watching this, the leftists, the Democrats, the media. I repeat myself. They've been working overtime to somehow make what's happening in the Middle East Israel's fault. And they've completely forgotten why Israel declared war in the first place. These media folks, these leftists, these Democrats. And to see an ABC journalismer trying to shame an Israeli soldier about the number of Palestinians dying. Bro, come on. Yeah, that's awful. So let's take a listen to it. Here's an ABC journalismer trying to shame this IDF soldier. He's an IDF member. Let's take a listen.
There are those voices there across this region and elsewhere who say the price of military action is too great, that too many civilians are now dying, too many Palestinians are already dying.
We're in a full war here, and the responsibility isn't on us. You should take that question straight back to Hamas. We are here because we have no other choice.
There are those voices.
Oh yeah, just leave it to a soldier to just give him a straight answer. Take that question back to Hamas. Hell yeah. Finally, leave it to the infantry to articulate the problem in plain text. See, when you have the right thing on when you have truth on your side, you don't need the fancy emotional words to make your point. They've all been obnoxious. It's not just ABC. ABC isn't special. They finally got called out by somebody who actually knows what's going on. And joining me here on the Patriot Power Plug, Cities 92.9, to talk a little bit about it, Mike Coolidge. He is actually a former Army officer, which is why I kind of wanted to get your reaction to this, Mike. He had a syndicated radio show. That's the Mike Coolidge Show. He's the chairman of the Ogle County Republicans. He also works on the American Greatness podcast, which I am going to get to here in just a second. But first reaction to that clip I just played, Mike. ABC journalism are shaming an IDF soldier for the Palestinian deaths.
Yeah, I so much appreciate you using that term journalismer, because they're not journalists. They have a bias. They lay it out for the world to see repeatedly. And there's no sense of principles anymore in journalism, especially at the highest levels of, let's see where the facts lead us and report on the facts, whether or not it helps, one side or the other. There are clearly two sides in this war. It's a side of people who chop off the heads of babies, who killed innocent civilians intentionally at a party, at a rave, in order to spark this war. That side, Hamas, we're talking about, of course, is a side that uses human shields and has, hospitals and things right next to weapons caches, so that if they're targeted, they will kill their own people. I mean, they're the bad guys, if you really want to, explain this to a 5-year-old. So, but we've got this whole leftist world that runs so many things, not just in the media, but from the UN, the global perspective, that thinks that the Hamas people, the people who specifically are part of Hamas, they're terrorists. They're a terrorist organization. That they somehow, it's this, equal sort of, well, there's innocent people being killed there too. Well, yes, there are. There are people in Gaza who have been told numerous times to get the heck out of there as fast as possible, who are innocent. Yes, there are innocent Palestinians, but Hamas brought this war on. Israel's existence, we use terms like existential threat in the media all the time. The global climate, existential threat. The world's going to blow up in 8 years if we don't, reduce carbon emissions and all this stuff, which is not true. The world's going to be fine. Whereas Israel, it is absolutely 100% an existential threat. If Hamas gets what they want, and if they bring their allies into this war, Hamas's allies I'm talking about, and there's a lot of them, Israel's not going to exist if they have their way. And a reporter like this, a journalismer, is that what you said, journalismer? I like that term.
Yeah, journalismer. Yeah, whatever they are. I usually call them corporate journalismers.
Yeah,
that's my full term.
The cultural elite. Yeah, there's all sorts of things, but no, not journalists. That's not what that is. And there's a lot of terrible journalism happening.
Yeah, but one thing, and I'm not going to push back against you at all. I agree. I think that there are innocent people in Gaza. I wouldn't call them innocent Palestinians. I think that there is this, narrative definitely passed down from the White House. And I just played the clip of John Kirby essentially saying that we're going to be giving humanitarian assistance to both sides, Israel and Palestine. Palestine is not a country. There's Palestinian territories. When you're Palestinian, in Hebrew, it means invader. I think that people who are Palestinians have had children. They, have raised their children to not be an actual Palestinian. So that term Palestinian, I would say that there's Arabs, there's people in the Middle East that are not a part of this. I'm going to say Antifa-like, BLM-like Palestinian, because that's what the Palestinians are. They're just dissenters. They're these people who create the autonomous zones in our country, like Chaz. They create these fair. Little territories.
And again, like we could call them, let's call them non-Israelis or non-Jews in Gaza. There are people. Not every single person who's not Jewish in Gaza is for Hamas and is backing Hamas. They will be collateral damage in this war, thanks to Hamas, if they don't leave Gaza, if they don't find themselves a safer place than what these people who purport to speak for them are telling them, what to do. And but this comes down to back to to your original thing. These journalismers, they have to report on this factually. And the big story now in the last 24 hours, of course, is this hospital that so many of these mainstream corporate elite journalists immediately jumped to the conclusion that, and including some sitting congressmen here in the United States, that Israel attacked this hospital with an airstrike and 500 people are dead. Immediately they jumped to that. They don't have a body count of 500. They don't have any, there's no facts to support that statement, but that's the headline. And then sometimes they say Palestinians say, at the time, and then that's dropped out in some of the other headlines. No, now we're finding out through actual hard evidence of people who track these things that there's zero evidence of any cratering, of any sort of thing that would be indicative of an airstrike. I've been in the Middle East in a building that was struck by an airstrike, and you see it. I was in a building in Baghdad actually, where you can see the hole in the ceiling going all the way down to the bottom, a precision airstrike by the U.S. military, actually, that you can only come from something from the air. There's nothing like that in the evidence they have of this hospital right now. The evidence points to it being an inherent rocket, that happened from inside Gaza. And there's no Israeli forces inside Gaza right now shooting, air to ground missiles. So you can't conclude in any way, shape, or form that this was Israel doing this, but the media, of course, will jump right to that conclusion.
Yeah,
A lot of
and
people.
we know now through evidence, right, that that's not factual, but it doesn't matter. They got their narrative out there before anybody else got the truth out there. So now people are going to think that Israel blew up a hospital. Here was my initial reaction to it, because I had just assumed that they blew up a hospital, because war is ugly, okay? And if Israel blew up a hospital in response to them blowing up, paragliding in and slaughtering, raping women, cutting off the heads of children, right? I don't know. I would say that that's an appropriate response. Yes, that's awful. But war is ugly, and if they're playing war like, hey, we're gonna chop off the heads of babies, you know what I mean? Like that was my initial reaction. If they did that, it's gruesome, it's terrible, and I'm not condoning it in any kind of sense. I don't want the war to be going on. It shouldn't be going on. It's Joe Biden's fault. Really, we didn't have this when Trump was president. But when I read that, I was like, and it's war. You know what I mean? I don't know. I know that's awful, but if they're going to be committing war crimes, then why wouldn't Israel be committing war crimes right back?
Yeah, it goes back to the two different standards that, again, the media reporting on this has. That is, one side, and we'll put our U.S. military, Western forces, and Israel in the same category. We go out of our way to develop weaponry for war that is as precise as I talked about. Back to this
and it is humane, as
yes,
war
it's
could
as
possibly
humane as you
be.
can be. Like, we're specifically targeting military. Like, we have, and Israel has the ability to, if there is a hospital and they know that all of the Hamas people are congregating into one wing of it, and all the innocents on the other are on the other side, they have the technology to just hit the side in it that has Hamas with their war war headquarters or whatever. And I'm just using hypotheticals here, but they have whereas Hamas and they're like they go out of their way to kill civilians, and then the media looks at something like this and says, okay, well, they just attacked the hospital, Israel, so look how evil they are, and so on. And then they blow that up, figuratively. And yeah, there's two separate standards. Yes, war is awful. The Dresden bombings in World War II killed thousands of innocents. That we bombed, the U.S. bombed. Hiroshima and Nagasaki also killed hundreds of thousands of innocent people. Had we not done that, we would have bombed Tokyo too, which would have killed millions of people. We would have invaded Japan, which would have killed millions of people. War is the worst thing that humans do to each other, obviously. So if you can do things that prevent innocent people from dying in the future, yes, sometimes that calls for making calls about, attacking a place where we know the enemy, if we hit them, they're going to be unable to do worse things in the future. And yes, often, and when you have an enemy who is using civilians specifically as shields to do the propaganda war, when you do kill them, the bad guys, and innocent civilians are next to them, yeah, they're going to, of course, use that as propaganda, and that's happening. And yeah, this is going to get worse before it gets better. I can't remember. I don't know if we've been on 2 weeks, or if it's been 2 weeks since I've been on last, but I don't remember if I made this point when this first blew up. But the Nazis in World War II, when the concentration camps were revealed, they did everything they could to hide their atrocities. The Nazis, we weren't doing this. We weren't gassing people. We weren't starving people to death. But Hamas and these terrorists are openly bragging and showing as much as possible on their phones and on social media the atrocities they're doing, and all the people who are backing that side need to really be held into account. It's especially Americans here who are pro this Hamas part of this war.
Yeah, and people like the Hamas caucus, as I like to call them, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib. Speaking of Congress people, they've got a big vote, and I do want to talk about the House Speaker Jim Jordan. I was kind of thrilled to see some of my congressmen, Mike Bost, Darren LaHood. That was one of the first couple of people I was looking for to make sure that they were voting for Jim Jordan. But
Yep.
there's still some holdouts. And my
Yep.
mom, she actually called me. She was like, I was watching on the news and she goes, I'm worried that Hakeem Jeffries is going to get in. And I was like, honestly, me too. That should really like wake up the Republican Party. Why do we have people in there who would be so willing to vote for a Democrat as speaker over, Jim Jordan? Because I don't know, he makes him feel bad once in a while with some of his rhetoric.
It's yeah, I know. I mean, I'm frustrated. I was texting back and forth with a congressman. I'm not going to say who I was just asking for some insight to this, and he was saying, yeah, like we don't have our eyes on the prize. The ultimate goal here is to elect a speaker, obviously, who's Republican, and move on. Like this. But the longer this plays out, the more we're playing right into the Democrats' hands. They do look united. They are united. They're all behind, Hakeem Jeffries. And I have run for Congress before. I've lost. It stinks. It sucks. But when you lose, you know that you got to back the Republican who beat you, and you got to swallow your pride and do it. And unless they're a super rhino, pro-choice, like, anti-Second Amendment, open the borders Republican running against a conservative pro-life Democrat, you got to back the Republican, even if you hate that person because they were so awful to you in a primary. Let's say everyone in Congress has run in a primary. Some of them have probably lost primaries and then won in the future. This is that same kind of situation. The guy that they backed for speaker didn't win. And what's so unfathomable is like that some of these people who backed Scalise aren't backing Jordan, but then you have people who are backing both of them, who back both. Yes, like whoever it takes, let's get him in. And the last thing I read was that he was down to 7 holdouts. And, there's been accusations of bullying, whatever that is, or like hard-nosed kind of stuff. Look, if Jordan needs to get these 7 to turn, it is going to take one-on-one conversations with those congressmen, not outside people, not whatever. And the other thing, the more important entity actually that can convince them are constituents, of course. Here in Illinois, all 3 of our congressmen are backing Jordan. So any listeners here, they're already behind Jordan. But if you have friends in other states of a congressman who isn't on board, got to call them and say vote for Jordan. And we the longer this goes on, the worse it's going to get for us politically in the House in 2024.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've got to take a break. Mike Coolidge, I so do appreciate you joining me. And I'm hoping that they get a vote, that these 7 holdouts, but I think you're so right. They just need to get to the table, one-on-one conversation.
Bite the bullet. Bite the bullet. Hopefully when we talk next week, we'll have a speaker.
Yeah. Well, and Mike Coolidge, tell me a little bit about the American Greatness podcast.
Yes,
you've been working on that.
YouTube, I stood up these 8 fantastic episodes. They're hosted by Dan Proft. Gad Saad is our most recent one. It's phenomenal. It was recorded right before the Israel situation started. The war started there, and it's the latest one is about how and why people don't change their opinions. Really, really interesting insight on that. Go to YouTube, search for American Greatness channel, and you can find it on Rumble too. American Greatness, awesome podcast that I'm very proud I helped stand up in these last couple months.
I love it. And this American Greatness podcast, I subscribe to the channel, so you should too. 309-451-9299. We'll be right back. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Kat. Have a great week.
Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for joining me. Yes, we are live in studio. If you are watching, go ahead and smash the like button. We're going to be back talking a little bit about AOC. AOC, one thing, there's a few guarantees in life. And one of those guarantees, it's death. Another guarantee is taxes. You got to pay taxes. Another one is AOC making a complete fool of herself. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. The WTF look on this CNN host's face as AOC just babbles on about why she called for a ceasefire is absolute perfection. And I'm so excited for you guys to actually see it on the stream. The face of the CNN host, she was like, what are you talking about, AOC? Few guarantees in life: death, taxes, and AOC making a complete fool of herself. When she tries to talk about things that she has no clue about. Okay, that's what AOC's problem is. She doesn't know what the hell she's talking out about. She pretends to know. And then she finds herself in situations like this where she's on CNN and Abby Phillip just she couldn't keep herself from making this WTF look like on her face. She's like, oh, what? We're going to talk about that here and Bloomington here coming up in just a little bit. The WTF look on this CNN host's face is hilarious. AOC, she's going on, she's babbling about what she why she called for a ceasefire. When this all happened, AOC got out there and she called for a ceasefire. And before I get into the look on this CNN host's face, which is absolute perfection, by the way, she's like got this WTF look on her face. She's like, what are you talking about, AOC? There's only a few guarantees in life: death, we're gonna die. Number 2, taxes. You got to pay taxes. Number 3, AOC making a complete fool of herself every time she tries to pretend she knows what the hell she's talking about. And I had a caller on the line, and he calls me and texts in, and he says, that hospital that Hamas bombed was fodder. So what they did, that hospital was full of disabled kids, kids that have disabilities or handicap, and they bombed it because just like the gays, they bomb they destroy people who are handicapped or are mentally retarded, right? They kill those people. Okay, I've told you before, the Palestinian people, what they do is they'll take gay people and they think that they're abnormal, right? And what they'll do is change their genitals to fix uh, their homosexual tendencies. So then they try to get them to be heterosexual by actually mutilating their genitals. It's kind of funny how here in the United States, we've kind of, put lipstick on that pig and we've called it, gender affirming surgeries. But the Palestinians have actually been doing that for decades, right? They will take gay people and they will chop their genitals off or, or mutilate them in order to have their homosexual tendencies correspond with their biology. You know what I'm saying? Like that's messed up. And this texter, he says, I was looking at, we were shown images of that hospital before, and that hospital was full of, children with disabilities, mental retardation, and Hamas bombed that hospital as fodder. And I suggested, I was like, I wonder who's pulling the strings, because Russia is bad. Russia is evil. Putin is bad. Ukraine is satanic. Actually satanic. The ambassador of Ukraine is a Satan worshiper. Don't believe me? Look it up. She invited the Podesta brothers, which is so funny. How this is all connected, because Hillary Clinton, the Podesta brothers worked on her campaign through the WikiLeaks emails. We found an email from the ambassador of Ukraine, the now ambassador of Ukraine, inviting them to what's called a spirit cooking. That's an actual satanic ritual. Don't believe me? Just look it up. Look it up. The emails, the receipts are there. They emailed the Podesta or the U.S. ambassador, who's there now. She emailed the Podesta brothers and invited them to a spirit cooking. But Russia is evil as well. Russia, they have these war tactics where they bomb their own things and then they try to use this propaganda. It's like almost like a Cold War tactic that they use. They try to spin the narrative. And what Hamas did here with this hospital, if that's true, if that was just used as fodder and they were going to kill those kids anyway, the mentally retarded kids, then that looks like Russia. It looks like something Russia would do. And biblically, right, it talks about how Magog and that there's an alliance formed. And once that alliance is formed, then that apocalyptic prophecy is coming true. So I don't know. I think it's just signs of the times. But whew, yeah, it's devastating that all of these innocent children in that hospital, civilians in that hospital, lost their life. And we were talking with Mike Coolidge about it a little bit, but I want to get to this. AOC babbling on about why she called for a ceasefire. The look on the CNN host's face is phenomenal. I mean, it is perfection. And AOC, she has this thing where she goes up there and she just makes a fool of herself. She pretends to know what she's talking about and she just makes a fool of herself. Years ago, when she was asked about Israel and the Middle East, AOC admitted that she was no expert on the subject. But fast forward to today, she calls for a ceasefire. I'm thinking she should have stuck with the point that she wasn't an expert, because now you can't take this back. The CNN host Abby Phillip, she couldn't keep herself from making this face, and this face that she makes is, a WTF face. That's what I'm going to say. Abby Phillip. I'm going to share with you the babbling that went on. AOC babbling on about why she called for a ceasefire on the stream. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You could actually see the face of the CNN host, and I think it just makes it all the much better. But here we go. Let's take a listen.
As all of this kind of kicked off, you and several other of your colleagues released a statement calling for a ceasefire in the region. But I wonder, what is Israel supposed to do about Hamas after they murdered, brutalized, abducted over 1,000 of their citizens? Are they supposed to just do nothing?
Well, I think what's important to note about a ceasefire is that it's not one-sided. Hamas has been sending thousands of rockets into Israel as well. And what is important is for us to identify our goal in terms of what safety means, in terms of what defense means.
But
and
I think, Congresswoman, I think the position from Israel's perspective is that there was already an attack, and Hamas already committed an attack. After that happened, do you really believe that they should not respond to that?
I think what is important in terms of response is Israel does have a right to self-defense. I think what we need to take a look at in this situation is if collective punishment qualifies as defense, if the blockade on water, food, electricity, if the dropping of white phosphorus, which is an indiscriminate weapon, qualifies. So I do believe that there's a discussion to be had here. I don't believe that an either or approach is what is necessary, but we should identify what our goal is, which is the cooling of tensions in the region.
Israel's goal is to rid the region of Hamas. They've been very clear about that. And I certainly take what you're saying about the condition of Gaza right now for civilians who, as you point out, are not synonymous with Hamas. But for Israel to deal with Hamas, which is a force that is actually detrimental to Palestinians.
Absolutely.
How else are they supposed to address a violent, militant, some say terrorist group, other than to go in there and take them on directly?
Well, when we talk about going in there, I think we should also keep in mind President Biden's statements as well about what the implications of a potential ground invasion would be. This is an inherently complex situation. I do believe that Hamas needs to be dealt with.
But how, I think, is what I'm
trying to
understand.
And I think what we're trying to figure out right now is that this present situation of collective punishment and
she just drones on for like 3 minutes. AOC, you said a whole lot of nothing there. And here's the thing. AOC, she memorized a bunch of talking points. That's exactly what she did. And she kept trying to stick to them. Even when they didn't answer the question she was supposed to answer. She was asked a question of Abby Phillip, the CNN host. She's sitting there and she's got this face like, WTF, what are you talking about? This was a train wreck. And I thought Kamala Harris was a word salad expert. No. AOC is the word salad expert in comparison. Every one of her interviews are the same. AOC always says, we need to have a conversation. We need to have a conversation. She never has any solutions to the problem. She wants to have a conversation, but has zero clue, zero, zilch, none about about it in the first place. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Very typical of AOC. I do have to take a quick break. Real quick, that CNN host, she says the Hamas is a detriment to the Palestinians. No, the Palestinians and Hamas, they're the same people. Okay, I've told you multiple times the word Palestinian in Hebrew means invader. Now, I do believe that there might be some Muslims, some Arabs, some non-Jews who are in the region who are innocent and are not these dissenters, this Antifa-like esque Palestinian that I'm talking about here. Palestinians, there is no Palestine. There is no country called Palestine. There is Palestinian territories, and they're basically autonomous zones, similar to that of which we saw in Seattle, Chaz. So it's very important that we do not listen to the language of those on the left. Abby Phillip, you're wrong. There are no innocent Palestinians. There are no Palestinians. The Palestinian means invader. The Palestinians, Hamas, it's the same thing. So we're going to be back on the other side. I've got a few things I want to hit, specifically the Downtown Bloomington project. It's the Streetscape Project. And then I do want to talk about the Mexican cartel not producing fentanyl anymore. Oh, it just frustrates me so bad when people sit there and they're like, oh, yeah, Palestinians, there's innocent Palestinians. There's not. Okay. If you were to look at the actual word Palestinian in Hebrew, that means invader. It means invader. There are no Palestinians that are innocent. What they're talking about and what they mean, it's non-Jewish people in that region. I believe that there are non-Jewish people in that region. Who these are Israelis, right? These are people who should be in Israel. Israel throughout the years have lost so much land in land offers. So they've given land in exchange for peace. These are traditional Israelis, people who used to live in Israel, but now they live in, the Middle East. And, they could be Iranian, they could be Arabs, Saudi Arabians, in the Middle East there, they could be just Middle Easterns, Eastern people who do not like Antifa and BLM this type of group, which is the Palestinians. Okay, so we are going to be back in just a little bit talking about the Downtown Streetscape in Bloomington. This is important. I'll be back. Hello, good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Yes, we are going to be getting to Britney Spears. She claims that she got an abortion while dating Justin Timberlake because he didn't want to be a father. So she says that she got the abortion because Justin Timberlake didn't want to be a father. And oh, Britney, here she is blaming other people yet again. She refuses to take any accountability. But she's a leftist. They all are in the entertainment biz. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. The Mexican cartel, they're pinky promising that they're going to bar fentanyl production. They actually wrote like this banner and they put it up in some sort of Mexican city. One of the major Mexican drug cartels there in Mexico. They wrote out a banner. They hand wrote, hey, we're going to stop the production of fentanyl. And if you produce, if you transport, if you manufacture fentanyl, then then you've been warned. So if you produce fentanyl within that drug cartel, then there's a death penalty. Okay, it's punishable by death. Now, this is the same Mexican drug cartel that was ran by El Chapo. And, I just don't believe the Mexican drug cartel when they say, oh, yeah, we're going to stop fentanyl production. It's kind of like saying the tooth fairy is real. Santa Claus does actually deliver presents on Christmas. And, there's one distruth about that. The Mexican drug cartel promising to put an end to one of their biggest moneymakers. It's like saying Santa Claus actually delivers Christmas gifts, right? So the tooth fairy, and it's like saying the tooth fairy is real. We're going to be back talking a little bit about that. Plus, we've got a guest coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, Donald Reitz. He's running in the 105th State House District. Also have to tell you a little bit about the Downtown for Everyone. This is a project. This is a Downtown Streetscape Project. And it's going to cost, it's costing Bloomington taxpayers about $750,000. Right now, spent up to this point is $450,000. So we're going to talk a little bit about that next on The Buzz. Buzz, if you want to see me live in studio, that's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. I'm there. You can see me, and I can interact with you. And this is something that is bothering a lot of Bloomington residents, okay? This Downtown Streetscape Project. And so far, we've approved $750,000 worth of spending so far. So that's how much you're out. That's how much it costs the Bloomington taxpayers. So far, up to this point, they've spent $450,000 of that $750,000 that was approved. And you're like, okay, what's the $750,000 supposed to be for? Well, it's for the conceptual design process. So really all that 750K is like for a bunch of, white collar bureaucrat losers to get around a table and to talk about, what is this going to look like? What's the concept going to be? What's the design going to be? So you've got all of these different people who are sitting around a table and you're not there. Of course, you're not there. There was an open house for the public to finally be involved after 12 months passed, and there was no involvement from the general public. 12 months after the project was initiated in August of 2022, they decided to do some sort of open house, but at this point, they've already spent $450,000 on this concept and design process of it all. So you're thinking to yourself, Kat, why is it coming to Bloomington? It's a smart city, damn it. That's what it is. It's a smart city. So a smart city is a part of this global initiative. Yes, it's from the World Economic Forum. Klaus Schwab is trying to shove this down your throat as a Bloomington resident. The funding for this, $750,000 passed. It's just a study. Really, that's all this is. It's a study. A bunch of people get around the table and they're like, well, let's do a bunch of studies. Let's figure out what it's going to look like. And that's cost, I guess, $450,000. So far, it's going to cost overall $750,000. The total streetscape project, and when it's all said and done, it's going to cost you about $30 million. $30 million, folks. And it's probably going to be way more than that. People from the community, David, shout out to him. Way to go for going to this open house and being a part of local politics here. He says, my main concern is that downtown is becoming a money pit. We've spent millions and millions of dollars on Grosinger Motors Arena. It doesn't make us any money. The BCBA doesn't make us any money. We're just spending money and there's no return on the investment. All you're doing is putting a pretty face on the downtown. So let me get back to smart cities. Smart cities, they're called smart cities. It's smart city technology. And the goal of it is supposed to make city operations smoother for the public and to make the municipality more efficient. This is a global initiative put on by the World Economic Forum. Bloomington is doing this, and the deputy city manager, this isn't a conspiracy. The deputy city manager said that the smart tech in smart cities, this is going to be a part of the downtown streetscape plan that's under development currently right now. So that was what he said back in 2022. And you're like, okay, well, a smart city doesn't sound that bad. No, this is designed so you have to walk everywhere. Okay, they're called smart cities, 15-minute cities, and it's designed. And you're probably wondering to yourself, well, why are my roads such crap in Bloomington? Because they've given up on the roads. They're not focused on the roads. They don't want you driving anywhere. They want you 15 minutes within your grocery store, within the laundromat, within wherever you go. They want it to be 15 minutes away. And get this, they're going to track you. They track your movements. That's what this smart city is. All of the license cams, the street cams, they're going to start tracking your face. And if you don't believe me, just look up on the World Economic Forum site, the global initiative for smart cities. They go through and there's an actual video where they've taken the faces of people and put them into a database for the municipality to keep that database and to use that database to so-called make your life easier, to make it convenient for you. They store your data. They track how far you've walked. They share that with the government, for your convenience. And then they're going to try to put things, they're going to look at your movements. They're going to try to, if you walk, 20 minutes to your grocery store and you live, at this X location, they're going to try to make your walk a little bit smaller. And they're going to put up another grocery store that's probably about 5 minutes from where you live. So $750,000. We got to be involved. We got to say no to this stuff. That's what it is. It's a smart city. It's a 15-minute city, whatever you want to call it. Yes, it's a smart city and it's coming to your community. That's the Downtown Bloomington Streetscape. Yes, the roads suck, but you won't need roads because the World Economic Forum Smart Cities Initiative, which they're all about, folks, you have to walk everywhere. Okay, they gave up on the roads a long time ago because guess what? They're making room for these smart cities to come to a community near you. That's in Bloomington. The streetscape, it's already costed you $450,000 at this point. I think all they've done is like do some conceptual designing, whatever that means. They've sat around a table and threw, concepts at a wall or ideas at a wall. And we paid them $450,000 to do that. We're going to wind up paying them $750,000 to do that. And then the entire streetscape project is going to cost $30 million. It's incredible. Speaking about Bloomington, let me set this up here before we get to our very special guest, Donald Raines. He's running in the 105th State House District. That's my district. Dennis Tipsford currently is in that district. Now, Dennis Tipsford, he's got quite the voting record. So let's call this specific bill out. It was a bill sponsored by Dave Kaler. Dave Kaler is a radical Democrat, and this has to deal with District 87 in the school district there. Sharon Chung, she also supported this bill. What this bill does, it exempts the district from having to pass a referendum for approval from the public before purchasing a building. Okay, so in state law, currently it says that you have to pass a referendum in order to get more monies to buy a building in the district. Okay, so we talked with a District 87 resident quite a while ago, and he was talking with us, and he said, look, the inability of people to understand simple math in America, it keeps me up at night. He goes, I swear. And he goes, problem number one, all of the money being used is taxpayer money. They didn't find a pot of gold over District 87 on that football field. This is our tax money we're talking about. And of course, they want to get this new building. It's on Oakland Avenue. They've expressed interest in this building. It's the old State Farm building. It's a $6 million building. And the district is going to purchase that building. But to purchase that building, you need money. And what they're going to do is raise up your taxes to purchase that building. Okay. And that needs to go to referendum if they want to purchase a new building, because the building is then taken off of the tax rolls, because whoever has the building right now, they have to pay property tax towards that building for Bloomington, and that majority of that goes to District 87. So that's taken off of the tax rolls. So there's so much to talk about with this, but to break it down with me, he's running in the 105th district right now. I believe it's just Dennis and Donald Raines running in that district, which I'm so excited about. Donald, he ran against him, I think in 2022.
2022.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about this vote and Dennis voting yes for it. Would you have voted yes for that?
I would not have voted yes for that. I mean, I believe in small government. Small government, knows what they need to do. They know best what they need, and it shouldn't have state overseeing their decisions and the state overriding their decisions. Same with the governor did for the townships in order to get windmills in and stuff like that. So, they were overrid that so that townships can't stop that anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would have voted no for that bill. Absolutely.
Absolutely voting no. And I mean, there's a couple of things that Dennis Tipsford has done. The non-citizens becoming police officers. Not only did he vote for it, but he co-sponsored it, which is a totally different thing,
different
right?
level. Yes, that's a different level on non-citizens being police officers. I mean, they have different spins on it in order to try to cover what they were doing, but the intention of the bill was so that non-citizens could be police officers. It's a pathway there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you talk to the different state reps, they all have a different spin on damage control on why they voted for it. Mm-hmm. Whether it be that they were voting for it to get us in line with federal government law, like Dennis has said, or that it's a ridiculous bill. There was no reason to pass it. There was no reason to why you even sponsor that.
And I actually think it is against federal law. There's federal law that says that you can't carry around a gun Uh,
There is federal laws that state that non-citizens or illegals can't carry weapons, and that's what you'll see some of them carry around 2 pieces of paper and say, "Hey, here's illegals can't carry weapons," but we're not talking about illegals. We're talking about non-citizens, people who got in here somehow legally, you
mm,
know, or in the between, whether it's green card, and it's like SpaceX. SpaceX is getting sued by the federal government for not hiring the asylum seekers,
mhm.
and the refugees,
Yep.
you know, and it's due to discrimination. So, you know, if one of the state reps said, "Well, you vote for the sheriff and the sheriff, if they can decide not to hire him, otherwise you can vote the sheriff off." But
Mhm.
what if the federal government gets involved and says it's discrimination then?
Mm.
There's all kinds of issues with this.
Yeah.
There's no reason to sponsor the bill, to have the bill, to work with the Democrats on the bill.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah, well, that's the thing too, is that we aren't even talking about a lot of these bills, they will get passed without your vote,
yes,
Dennis, because they have a super majority. So the Dave Kaler bill, Sharon Chung, anything that those guys propose as legislation, just vote it down. Just stay safe, vote it
yeah,
down. Sharon Chung, she's done that same thing we've talked about. Let's let's focus on local government. It should be local government. Sharon Chung, she's got this bill out there, and it's passed its law that exempts the town of Normal from operating with inside a state statute. Which, why in the hell would she do that? Oh, I know. It's because she doesn't actually believe in representation. The state statute, it says that incorporated towns have to elect certain officials. If you reach a 25,000 population threshold, if you're 25,000 and over, which Normal is, then you have to have the town clerk be elected. You have to have the assessor collect or elected. You have to have the collector elected. There's all kinds of different representative roles that you have to elect at that point. That's for representation.
yeah, yeah.
um,
On the SB 2323 one for the Bloomington school, for
mhm.
the OAB building, there was only 3 Republicans in the House that voted for that. That's my understanding, and Dennis was one of them. Yeah,
Wow.
but for the 3751 bill for non-citizens and police officers, um, I think there was like 29 Republicans in the House voted for it. 0 Senator Republicans voted for it.
Mhm.
0.
And here's the thing: what the Democrats try to do with that, and you're probably wondering why would they try to whip Republican votes? Because I'm
Yes.
sure Democrats are whipping Republican votes, and the reason why they want to do that is so they can say it's bipartisan
Yes.
because they know that the bill's going to get heat.
Yeah. And
Uh,
that's why I couldn't figure out why. So how did so many Republicans in the House vote for it? 2/3 of them, 3/4, but 0 in the Senate. Did leadership in the House say vote for this bill, or how did it come down? Or one of the state reps was up at a DeKalb meeting last week, and he said he said that they were listening to the 2 people who were police officers, and saying that was a good bill, which Dennis was one of them, and saying it was a good bill, so they just went along with it.
mm.
And said and in the last second, they're like, "Oh my, this is a bad bill." But and he says he wished he could go back on the bill, not vote on it. He
Mm.
could vote no, but it's too late.
It's too
So
late. Well, and you got to be smart about it. So let's get to this SB 2323. This is a really important one, folks, because here's what a Bloomington resident said about it. He said it's going to require money for utilities, maintenance, for personnel, for insurance, all those things. They're going to create a long term cost. We have one of these situations where we're trusting people to make decisions, and the people who get to make the decisions are the people who don't want to follow the rules of engagement that were put in place to protect us, the taxpayer. So there's rules in place. Dave Kaler said, let's do away with it. So Tipsword, here's how he justified his vote. You ready? Says this bill that would allow District 87 to purchase a vacant building from State Farm Insurance to be used for pre-K classes. The district has identified the need for more space for pre-K. See, that's the thing. I don't think that they actually identified a need, an actual need. But here, let's go on with his justification for voting yes to the SB 2023. He says, "This is not something I would support in all cases, but this specific case, the vacant building, is an opportunity to purchase much needed space for a pre-K program at a lesser cost than building new." So they want to purchase it. So your thoughts there to his justification? He essentially said there's a need. And that's why I kind of made an exception
Hmm.
for this referendum not to exist. I mean, or, well, this bill is to nix and circumvent the referendum requirement needed by District 87. They need to get it on the ballot if they want to
Yeah.
raise taxes on people and purchase a new building.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But my thoughts on that were, I mean, I'd still vote no. I mean, because, I mean, it's for number one, what's the state doing getting involved in local government? Number two, I believe if the bill doesn't really specify, I mean, it has the option of building new. They can do the research and figure out what they need to do. The decision wasn't totally made, to say we're buying this building in this bill. Those specifics weren't there. You'd have to go back and actually read what the bill, the law now says. And I don't believe it was specific to a building or even to having to buy a current building. So yeah, I would have voted no just because you don't mess around with local government and
Hmm.
you took that decision out of the citizens' hands.
Mm.
You took it out of their hands and
Hmm.
you let the state government
Well,
show
and
us
then
down.
I'd also ask him, hey, Bunting, Calkins, they were consistent and they voted no against it.
Yep.
Now, Bill Howder, you said 3 Republicans voted for this.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I'm not sure what the other two were. So
yeah, I don't know.
I mean, because Dennis is my state rep, so I was following to see how he was doing.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's another point I want to make here before we cut to break is, it really matters when you're on your representative like white on rice. You shouldn't have to be. That's the
Mhm.
whole point. And with hopefully Don Reins at this point, because I'm sorry, I'm going to, if the election were held today, I wouldn't be voting for Dennis because of the voting record, right?
Yep.
That's what you look at. I'm personalities. I don't do personalities. I look at your record. Mike Bost, I'm sorry, you voted for Ukraine several times. Not going to vote for you. Darren LaHood, you voted for Ukraine several times. Not going to vote for you. I'd vote for Mary Miller, sure. I won't do it if your voting record is bad. So it's interesting because he did vote no on this other property tax increase, or this tax increase where it looked at the Bloomington Normal Airport. So Sierra, they didn't demonstrate really a need. Neither did District 87 for this building. In
Mhm.
District 87's case, they didn't. In the Bloomington Airport Authority did not demonstrate a need to raise taxes. They didn't say, "Hey, we're getting more flights. Hey, we want to build this, airstrip or whatever." They didn't say any of that. They just want to expand the tax base to include all of McLean County. Right now, it's just Bloomington Normal that has to pay for the Bloomington Normal Airport. Right?
Yep.
There was no survey done to see if the McLean County residents, those in Lexington, Leroy, Anchor, Colfax. I don't know if those are all in McLean County, but some of these smaller outside communities, there was no engagement with those residents to see if they even use the airport. Right. So why would I pay for something if I don't even use it? But the McLean County Mayors Association went before the McLean County Board. They went before their state officials, and they raised hell about them taking away. Dave Kaler again took away this tax referendum, bringing it to referendum. Hey, let's leave this up to the people. Do they want to see their taxes raised?
Mhm.
Let's leave it up to the Bloomington Normal Airport to make their case why they need that increase and why they need to expand the tax base. So they raised hell. The McLean County Mayors Association raised hell, and Dennis actually voted no. So it goes to show that if you're white on rice, if you are on your state representative, if you're on your official, it matters. It really does. It shouldn't be that way, though,
Yeah.
right, Don?
Well, yeah, that's right. But I'll be going around. I'll be knowing what the people want. Right. I knock door to door now. We're getting our petitions, and I've knocked door to door for a long time. And if I would get this position, I'd retire from my job. He
Mm.
didn't retire from his. And I'd retire from my current position, at the company I work for down here, a large insurance company down here. And I'm going to go around and I'm going to talk to people and I'm going to make sure I know what my citizens want. That's what I'm going to vote for, is what they want and what they need. Right? I'm not going to vote for something that doesn't help them. Right? I mean, if somebody in Chicago needs a road built, well, they need a road built if it actually need it. But yeah, I'll vote for that. But I'm going to vote what my people need, what my people want, and I'm not going to bypass them.
Yeah.
I'm going to let the local citizens be able to have control over their local policies.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're seeing is big government just infiltrate every sphere of our lives. I mean, if you're a McLean County resident who lives in Bloomington, you are screwed because you're paying for the Bloomington Normal Airport, you're paying for the District 87 tax increase, and it's just insane. It's insanity. We have got to take a break. Donald Ray Reigns. We're going to be back running in the 105th State House District. We're going to be back with Don on the other side. I do want to chat a little bit more about the non-citizen issue. And then we'll also talk about a few other things going on. The pregnancy resource bill is a big one for me. And then also after that, we'll get to Britney Spears. I know you guys want to know about that story. She, in her memoir, said that she got an abortion because, Justin Timberlake wasn't going to be a good dad. Well, I guess the Frosted Tips. That's a dead giveaway that he probably wouldn't be a great dad. And the parachute pants, right? In the 90s, of course he wouldn't have been a great dad. But Britney, you gotta own up to what she did. Okay. And she tells us in her memoir that she had an abortion. So I'm going to be back. This is the Morning Buzz. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. If you're watching, go ahead, smash that like button and share this out with your friends. This is so important. The conversations we have on the buzz. We're going to be back with Donald Ray Reens here running in the 105th district, the state house. He's going to be your next state representative. I'll be back. Donald Reens. He's running in the 105th State House District. I'm so excited. We were talking through the break, Don and I, and we were chatting a little bit about politicians. You know, we just wish that they would do what they say they're going to do when they get there.
Or at least even know what they are going to do.
Yeah. So tell me about, how can we find out where politicians actually stand on issues?
Well, you can ask them. You
Yeah.
know, you can go to iVoter Guide. You can go to different guides. There's different guides out there to look at, and that ask questions of the candidates. And if they don't have answers out there, if they never filled them out, then you got to wonder where they stand. It's in the political world. I think politicians think it's safe not to state too many things. That way, you don't vote against them because they stand for one thing you don't believe in. Like I'm right for life. I believe life starts at conception, and that's going to lose me some votes, but that's where I stand, and people know it.
Mhm.
And if you'll get these other people, you don't know where they stand. Where do they stand? You don't know if they haven't answered, if they don't strongly go out there and state it. They don't state. To me, it's either you believe that it starts at conception, or you believe in murdering babies in the womb.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's. And because I don't think there's an in between, unless you got some type of health condition, serious health condition of some sort, or the babies.
Well, and that's the thing. It's not even abortion at that point. That's something totally different. And the left has taken abortion, that term, and applied it to those situations. And that's not what that's called. That's a medical procedure, and I forget what it's called, but it's not called abortion. And they've manipulated that, which is where I want to take our conversation this morning, Donald. So the Pregnancy Resource Centers, this bill is out there, SB 1909. And I've talked with the Pregnancy Resource Centers here locally in Lincoln. It's Living Alternatives, folks. Go check them out. It's the pregnancyresourcecenter.org. They're great. I've been there. I've toured the facilities. Now, Kwame Raoul, who's the Attorney General, which I don't even get me started on why Kwame Raoul is drafting legislation and enforcing that legislation. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But he's charging them up to $50,000 for so-called deceptive practices. Now, what these deceptive practices are, who knows? Democrats say that it's because, pregnancy resource centers will get women, they'll get them into the chair, do an ultrasound, and force them to hear their baby's heartbeat, God forbid. And then they change their mind and they say, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to go the abortion route. I choose life, and I'm going to use my pregnancy resource center for things like diapers, clothing, counseling. I'm going to use their resources. That's what their pregnancy resource center, right? So now they're going after the pregnant. That's not what they do. They don't get you into a chair right away and get you to hear your baby's heartbeat. That's not at all what they do. Now, they do provide ultrasounds for free, right? Through donations. They're nonprofit organizations. They get donations, and then they pay for those ultrasounds for these women. And you need an ultrasound, right, to track your pregnancy, make sure everything's going all right. And they have trained people on site. They're nurses. They've got degrees. They're just like the nurse you would go see at a hospital, right, to go get an ultrasound. They're trying to make this narrative that they're, these back alley people who are trying to get you to not get an abortion. This is a huge deal. And Donald, I just want your reaction really to this bill. And really, it's a law. They're trying to go after it via the court system. They're trying to say that the pregnancy resource centers are trying to say, hey, this is
they're
against
trying,
my
it
freedom
sounds
of
like
speech.
they're trying to strong arm the conservative values.
Mhm.
And I don't know why the left or why the Democrats are so much for death. Why it doesn't make no sense to me. But why they continuously use the law to try to strong arm conservative values or create laws. It's it's ridiculous. I don't know another word for it. It's ridiculous. It's like prisoners are going to have mobile abortion units, right? I mean, that's ridiculous. Well, we don't have Planned Parenthood in our county. Well, good. We don't have Planned Parenthood in our county, because they're an abortion clinic is what they are. They don't drive for life so much as they drive, the services of death.
Mhm.
And now prisoners going to have these mobile units, that can go around to areas to do abortions,
Mhm. Yeah.
and it concerns me. So,
Yeah, well, and then we're paying for it on top of that. So they'll drive to the border, actually,
Yeah.
pick up a bunch of Indiana. Like, that sounds sketchy, right? Not what the pregnancy resource centers are doing. These people have amazing facilities. I mean, state of the art, have just beautiful rooms where you can go get an ultrasound. They've got these counseling rooms where, they have small groups and, they're actually helping women who probably don't vote. They're helping largely Black women in the community with things like diapers. And, this is somebody who's actually doing some good. And then you've got these like back alley like vans, and they're like, oh, yeah, let's drive to the border and collect as many Indiana residents as possible, give them abortions on Illinois
tax,
residents' dime.
yep, on the tax dollar of the residents of Illinois.
It's
Yeah, and
incredible.
that's why all the states around us, went more pro-life, and Illinois did not. So
Mhm.
now we're attracting all the people from the other states into our state to have the abortions on our dime in many cases, like you say.
And
Yes.
we're paying for it. Quick reaction to the immigrant situation. So yesterday, I talked a lot about this $9,000 going towards each immigrant. So out of Chicago, they're getting shipped in to Chicago. They're residing in police stations, O'Hare Airport. It's a mess, and we're giving them $9,000 each for each illegal. We're giving them $9,000 in rental assistance, and we're paying for their moving costs, their furniture, they get a starter kit, and we're paying for them to move.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're getting $1,000 vouchers, to go spend money, and the use of money. Where's that money coming from? They're taking that money out of other pools where the citizens of this that need the money, for assistance. Theirs is getting reduced to give it to those people who are here illegally. Why are we even catering to them?
Mm,
You know? Yeah, I don't understand that. They're here illegally. What are we gonna, why are we paying their medical bills? Why are we helping them with all these things? It's good to be a country of help, but it's gonna drain us,
mhm,
right? And these people need to have a pathway back to out of the country, in my opinion.
mm,
So they're here illegally.
mhm,
And if then they're here on saying that they're asylum seekers, right? Well, if it's found out there's not because of the asylum, not because they're politically harassed in their own country, they need to
mhm.
go back.
Yeah, well,
And
and I've said it before, yeah, the so-called asylum seekers, a lot of times what these asylum seekers are, that international law lays it out, the definition of what an asylum seeker is. You flee a country, you go to a different country because of, political reasons or, having, so there was actually a family, I think they were out of Tennessee, and they're a Christian family. They've got a big family. They do homeschooling here in the United States. They've been here forever. They left Germany because Germany was taking their kids and they wouldn't allow the children to be homeschooled. And Germany, the police state, would knock on the door, take the children, force them into public school. That is wrong, and that's the type of people. But we're actually deporting those types of folks, the actual
yeah,
asylum seekers, right? And we're allowing the people who go country to country to country because they want more economic opportunity, right?
yes,
That is
yes.
not what an asylum seeker is. And international law
Well,
says the moment you leave your country to another country and you're in that country, that should be the country you stay in.
and those aren't the only people coming here. You got drug dealers, you got sex traffic, you got all these other things coming in.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Donald
Well, thank you for
Rainch.
having me. Yeah.
So how can we find out more about you? You're running 105th District.
Yeah. Reints.net, RIENTS.net. and you can go out, you can get hold of me, ask me questions, and I'll speak to you. I'll do anything any questions you need or want. I'll be able to talk to you and tell you how I stand on something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for having me here. And
Oh, yeah.
I'm just trying to get the word out.
Just trying to get the word out. Be vigilant. Make sure you find out the way your representative votes on issues. Right now, I'm just going to be honest. Dennis Tipsword, he voted for non-citizens to become police officers. He voted against your right as a Bloomington resident to have a referendum before you to increase your taxes. And I mean, so many more. I'll be back on the other side. This is The Buzz. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much, Kevin Lauer, for talking about the downtown Decatur investments, the smart city investments. Yes, that's coming here to Bloomington. I'm not making that up. The deputy city manager back in 2022 said that the downtown streetscape was going to be a big part of creating a smart city. These smart cities, it's, made, designed for you not to go anywhere go anywhere without walking distance. Okay. So everything's going to be shipped to your house, your breakfast, lunch, dinner, and you will own nothing and you will be happy. Of course, they're not going to work on the roads because you're not going to be driving anywhere. Decatur is no more inviting nor vibrant than before the investment. Exactly. Good morning. Hey, this is the morning buzz. Yes, we were talking with Donald Raines. He's running in the 105th district, and I'm glad that we talked about a few of those things just this past year, right? This is some votes that happened in May of 2023. The Dave Kaler bill that circumvents the state statute that says, hey, you have to bring this to referendum if you want to purchase another building in the district. But guess what? That bill got passed. It's was a bill that was voted on by Dennis Tipsford, who is the opponent of Donald Ray Raines in the 105th. So we talked about that bill. We talked about the McLean County Mayors Association and how upset they were about the airport authority looking to expand their tax base to all of McLean County, not just Bloomington Normal. Again, Dave Kaler, your senator, he circumvented a state statute that says, hey, in order to expand your tax base, you have to bring that question before the voters, before the public. And he created this legislation to circumvent the current law on the books that says, hey, bring these things to referendum. You have to ask the public. It's called taxation with representation. And Dave Kaler, if anything, these two bills show that he is about taxation without representation, without your consent. We talked about that. We also talked a little bit about the downtown Bloomington streetscape, $750,000 being dedicated to the planning of this streetscape. It's going to cost you probably about 30 million, way over 30 million if you want my take. The streetscape project in downtown Bloomington, and you're probably wondering to yourself, we spent millions and millions of dollars on things like the Grossing Motors Arena, the BCPA, and none of these events actually return on investment. Like we're spending those millions of dollars, but we don't get a return on that investment. And the same thing is going to be just look at what's going on in Decatur. I love how Kevin Lauer, he brings that up. He goes, look at Decatur, downtown Decatur. They had the same thing. It was like a streetscape. It's a smart city investment. I'm going to get to what a smart city is here. But Decatur is no more inviting nor vibrant than before the investment. So what is a smart city? A smart city, this is a global initiative put on by the World Economic Forum. If you don't believe me, just go check out their website. I've actually got a YouTube video here. And just kind of shows you what the forum cities. It tells you about, how they want it to be human centric. It's anything but human centric. Do not trust the World Economic Forum. It's everything the opposite of what they're telling you. Let's take a listen here to the World Economic Forum. This is from their website. Okay, from their very website. This is part of the Smart City initiative. Here we go.
With adequate protections in place for privacy, for security.
A smart city is not only about convenience or efficiency. It must be human-centric and achieve safety and security, fairness and accountability.
The key is these technologies need to be interoperable, and these policies need to be human-centric and drive inclusiveness. The G20 Global Smart Cities Alliance exists because governments everywhere want to know what policies are needed to build smart cities that live up to their values. We're bringing together leading cities, experts, institutions to share these policies through a roadmap built on real-world experiences.
So basically, what it is, it's everything at your fingertips. There's so much technology involved, and they don't want you to drive anywhere. They want you to stay within your 15-minute bubble, and you can walk everywhere or you can bike everywhere. And I love how this one texter says, all these fat Americans, how do you expect them to? I don't know how the smart cities are going to work because we got fat, lazy Americans. Well, that's the whole point. They're going to make it to where everything's within 15 minutes of you, but you're going to get your breakfast delivered to you, your lunch, your dinner. You're going to work at home. That's what this smart cities is, really. And the deputy city manager said that this smart tech is going to be a key part of the downtown streetscape plan that's currently under development. He said that back in 2022. So this isn't conspiracy theory. This is facts. Uh, they want smart city technology for this downtown streetscape plan, and it's going to cost you $30 million. And I'm sorry, I just don't really care what Klaus Schwab wants for me in my life. I care about what I want for me in my life. Klaus Schwab, you don't even, or you're not even American. I'll be back on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. You can always text in at 309-451-9299. Stay loyal, stay local. Yes. So this smart text data mining at its best. Calvin Coburn. Yes, he's actually running I played your interview this morning, Coburn, 95th State House District. I'm excited for his race. But yes, you got to stay local, stay loyal. These smart cities, they're coming to a city near you. They're going to, it's like your worst nightmare. I mean, I know you've seen the movies where, your face is tracked. They track where you walk, they track where you move. So that way they can, pitch you different conveniences. So if you walk 15, 20 minutes to your grocery store, they're going to try to pitch you, hey, do Uber Eats instead of walking 15, 20 minutes to the grocery store. We know that you go here for your groceries. So they try to pitch it as convenience. It's not going to be convenient at all. In fact, it's going to take away your freedom as a human being. And notice how the World Economic Forum says how it should be human centric. What does that mean? Of course it should be human centric. Why do you coming out and telling me that this plan should be human centric kind of makes me worried that it won't be human centric, that it's going to be robots running everything. So we are going to talk a little bit about Britney Spears. She said that she got an abortion because and Justin Timberlake, he wasn't going to be a good dad. Well, I guess I could have told you that before you slept around with him, right? Britney Spears, I could have told you that Justin Timberlake and his frosted tips and parachute pants probably wasn't going to be a great dad, but she discloses this in her memoir, and I think that there's a lot of people out there who are saying, "Oh, I feel so bad for her, blah blah blah." I do not feel bad for her, not one bit. It's her consequence. She's pretending as if celebrities didn't have, the access to full-time nannies to raise their children. She could have raised this child on her own. She said that she didn't want to. Um, and she didn't want to she goes, it would have been left up to me alone. I never would have done it. If Justin was wanting to be a father, to this day it's one of the most agonizing things I've experienced in my life. Yeah, killing a child will do that to you. But she tries to pretend that she didn't have the resources. Now Timberlake hasn't implied his support for abortion. His wife in 2008 at an Obama rally actually said nobody should be able to say what you do with your body. And then Justin Timberlake, on top of that, made a joke, even though joking about murdering babies probably not cool, right, Justin? But he goes, "I give Jess the right to choose where we're going to go eat all the time." Yeah, because you're a simp, Justin. The funny thing is, women always choose right, and yeah, that was the joke he made, and I was just shocked. I was like, "Are you serious right now? Choosing where to eat is totally different than murdering a baby. The decision to murder a baby. These people are clowns in the entertainment industry, and I'm just so sick of it." We're gonna be back here in just a little bit, wrapping up the show. I can't believe it. This was a quick show. Very excited to get to Justin Timberlake, Britney Spears, but also I'm going to try to hit this really quick. The Mexican drug cartel, they're out there saying that they're not going to produce fentanyl on these banners. So they actually created like billboards. I guess it's an effective marketing technique. And they told the Wall Street Journal that they're not going to be producing fentanyl anymore. This major cartel, it was the Mexican drug cartel that had the drug lord El Chapo. He's now jailed, but El Chapo's drug cartel is now saying that they're not going to be producing or transporting or manufacturing fentanyl in any kind of way. And if you do, if you're a drug guy, then you're going to get your head cut off or something like that. So I think it's all propaganda. I think that this is a way to kind of deter U.S. law enforcement. Now, I don't know. Maybe the U.S. is working with the Chapitos. Maybe they are working with them. The U.S. U.S. law enforcement, U.S. government is working with them, and they're saying, "Hey, if you put up all of these propaganda pieces, if you say that you're not producing fentanyl, we will allow you. We won't, jail you. We'll, cut down the big guy. He'll cut down his percentage of what he gets from all of the drug sales, right? If you say that you're not producing fentanyl, because Joey, Sleepy Joe, he's starting to look really bad because we've had 75,000 fentanyl related deaths in just this past year. And it's really not a good look for the United States government to have all of their people dying. So if you could just stick to heroin and cocaine, that'd be great. And we'll go ahead and take a little less of of the percentage of sales you make on the drug trade. We'll take a little less from you, or you can continue making fentanyl. Just put up banners or something that say that you're not producing fentanyl, and get on with the Wall Street Journal and do an interview with the Wall Street Journal about how you are no longer producing fentanyl. Britney Spears. Yes, she actually came out and she said that she got an abortion when she was with Justin because Justin didn't want to be a dad, and that she regrets that abortion. So Britney Spears, she wrote in her memoir, the memoir is called The Woman in Me, that when she was dating Justin Timberlake, she got an abortion and she claimed that he didn't want to be a father. And if it had been left up to her, she wouldn't have killed her own child. She goes, this is what she wrote. She goes, it was a surprise, but for me, it wasn't a tragedy, the baby. She goes, I love Justin so much, and I always expected us to have a family together one day. This would just be much earlier than I anticipated. So she didn't want to have the abortion. She said that it still haunts her to this day, blah, blah, blah. And she says that it would have been left up to me alone, and I wouldn't have been able to do it. Okay. And then she says that Justin didn't want to be a father, and it's one of the most agonizing things that she's ever experienced in her life. A household with both parents is typically the ideal situation. Don't get me wrong here, no matter how rich you are. But if you find yourself pregnant while having millions to your name, at the time Britney Spears did, she had millions to her name, I think you're more than capable of raising a child on your own. Okay. Or alone. She had full-time nannies at her disposal to raise her kids, right? So Timberlake implies his support for abortion at this 2008 Obama rally. His wife, she tweeted out and says that nobody should tell you what to say, and nobody should tell you what to do with your body. And he made a joke, being Justin Timberlake. He makes a joke, which wasn't really funny because you're talking about murdering children. He goes, "Yeah, I give Jess the right to choose where we go to eat all the time." Nothing but clowns in the entertainment industry, let me tell you. But Britney is not blameless in this. She could have raised that child, but she chose not to. Okay, so now she's trying, don't let her get away with it. Now she's trying to make you feel bad for her. I'm not going to let her make me feel bad for her, because the only victim in this situation was the child who was killed by his or her own mother. All right, you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll do it again tomorrow morning.